10 minutes.
Don't believe a word she said. I'm actually really bad. Well, Toastmasters and welcome guests. I remember in 9th grade I was taking biology class, and the teacher was talking about human biology, different parts of the body and the brain. And he said that we only use 5% of our brain. Did you know that? 5% of our brain. And I raised my hand and asked the question. So what happens to the other 95%? What is that for? And he said, well, we don't quite know yet. And I wasn't satisfied with that answer. And that question kind of was always a fascinating question for me. I always wondered, so what's most of our brain for? Is it just water and filler, just to make sure our heads are propped up so that it doesn't fall out to the 5% we actually use? Or what is it? Something must be there. So that question always lingered. And then onward to college. In college, I began a spiritual search. I sampled many different types of spiritual practices, different belief systems, and one Zen saying from Zen Buddhism really intrigued me. And the saying is basically, before enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. And I didn't know what the heck that meant. What's the point of that? What was the whole enlightenment thing when nothing happened? I really didn't get it. So my spiritual search continued. I really couldn't figure out which belief system worked for me. And eventually I decided that no one belief system really fit me. I needed to try many different things. And that search eventually led to me coming across a really cutting-edge spiritual practice. There have been so many spiritual practices coming up because of with proliferation of the internet and technology. Communication has really exploded, and with that, all these other types of technologies, such as medical science and academics, and also spiritual studies, spiritual practices, have also proliferated. And about a year ago, while flipping through a magazine that's aptly titled "What is Enlightenment?" I just out of curiosity at Barnes & Noble's at the magazine rack, I came across a little article, quarter of the page, that spoke about a spiritual practice that stemmed from India that's actually really new. And it was called the Oneness Blessing. And basically, in a nutshell, the Oneness Blessing is where people would lay hands on your head, and so-called divine energy would be transferred through that person into that person. And the whole premise behind this Oneness Blessing was that enlightenment was not a spiritual thing, but actually a neurobiological process. What happens is the brain, there's actually two parts of the brain. The frontal part, the frontal lobes, and then there's the parietal lobes, which are in the middle of the head. And they mentioned these two parts of the brain. The front part was underactive, and the middle part was overactive. The middle part is the part that allows us to have sensory separation, so that we know that my body ends here, the wall is there, so that I don't walk into the wall and crash. So that allows us to have our three-dimensional experience, our coordination, our balance. And the frontal part of the brain allows us to have a deeper connection to everything. When we were all first born, we were actually born enlightened, which means that we were one with everything. We were our mother, we were our father, we were the ceiling, we were everything. We didn't have that sense of boundaries yet. So the sense of the individual did not stop at the skin. It just was everything. It didn't know that it had a concept of that it was a separate body. But when the child grows up, they develop that sense. So in a nutshell, I actually went to a Oneness Blessing event in Manhattan in February, and I didn't feel anything. I was like, that's nice, I just lost $30. What was that about? But somehow I wasn't satisfied because these questions still nag me. I just went back again and again, once a month, and eventually I noticed things shifting. My perceptions shifting, my experiences with my body. It was like I was opening up to new experiences in my body, and it was actually really interesting. And eventually I went to India, to the Oneness University, and I got trained. Long story short, I got trained to give the blessing, and also in the process, I got to learn all about how things work in our body, our mind, and those two questions that bugged me. The question about 5% of our brain and the other 95% not being used, now I'm starting to understand that once we open up to different parts of our bodies, different parts of our perceptions and senses, we start to tap into the rest of the brain that's basically sleeping. And it's an experience. It's definitely not something you read from a book or listen from a guy talking about it. It's an experience. And the other question about chopping wood and carrying water before and after enlightenment. Once I was in India, and I just had the most simplest experiences, such as going to the bathroom or drinking a glass of water, all of a sudden became different experiences. And the way they explained it is that through this oneness blessing, they were able to calm down the middle of the brain that causes separation, and also push up the frontal lobe activity to the point where different energy channels in your body, connecting the heart and the mind, became open. Once those two are brought into a certain balance, all of a sudden the 3D experience of being a human transforms, and you all of a sudden have different senses. Certain drugs will put you into the state, not that I've tried it, but this blessing apparently works, and I've tried it, and it's definitely an experience. So this is what happened, and my life has been different since. I just feel connected to people, connected to situations, and I can see myself in my own daily experiences. And I can say it's truly an amazing experience. So it's called the Oneness Blessing. So if any of you want to try it out, you can search it on the website. Thank you.